Welcome to our series on rethinking teaching post-COVID. Today, we dive into the profound changes the pandemic brought to the educational landscape. Of course, the COVID pandemic deeply impacted many in the U.S. and around the globe. Within the educational system, students, teachers, staff, and administrators faced enormous challenges only now beginning to be understood. Students' mental and physical health, learning, and social skills suffered, with some children behind as much as 3 grade levels. The COVID pandemic significantly impacted teachers too, with many experiencing increased anxiety, depression, and job stress, resulting in many teachers leaving the profession. In this course, we focus on how to help teachers rethink their teaching post-COVID to be more trauma responsive, developmentally flexible, and diversity receptive. We do this by first examining the trauma experienced by so many post-COVID, and then provide trauma-responsive strategies for teachers that they can use with students, self, and others inside and outside the classroom. In the next module, we examine how to rethink teaching goals with developmental flexibility in mind. And in the final module, we consider teaching strategies to navigate the social and economic issues exacerbated by the pandemic. Each module offers practical strategies and real-life examples to help you adapt to the new educational landscape. In this brief introduction, we examine the data on the adverse impact of COVID on students' mental and cognitive health and the economic effects at a community and national level that inevitably enters and transforms our classrooms. Understanding the impact of COVID provides the foundation needed to develop a set of useful pedagogical strategies that improve students' mental, cognitive, and social development. The past 5 years have been a whirlwind for all of us, including our children, with many experiencing various levels and types of trauma. Note the high stress levels in our high schoolers and college students, the high anxiety experienced by preschoolers and our high school students, the increased depression in our older students, and the terrifying increase in suicidality in our middle schoolers. Our students' mental health is suffering. Humans are resilient, though, especially our children. If we engage in trauma-responsive practices, we can identify when our students need extra support and teach in a way that improves all our students' well-being. We will delve deep into trauma-informed practices in Module 2 that teachers can use to help students stay focused and learn. When we consider the impact of COVID on students' academic skills, we see significant decreases in math and reading scores at all grade levels. Math scores took the biggest dip, especially for the elementary and middle schoolers. Sadly, COVID-19 hit our most vulnerable students the hardest. As you can see, the most significant developmental delays occurred in preschoolers and early elementary students, especially in their speech and language, social, emotional, and motor skills. Not surprisingly, the most significant delays were in the speech and language areas for all students except high school students. However, the data reveals significant delays in high school students' social emotional skills compared to their other skill areas, which aligns with what we saw previously with the trauma data. Note the significant behavioral delays for early elementary students compared to other grade levels. On average, developmental delays equate to approximately 3 children in each classroom not reaching their developmental milestones by the end of the school year. From NAEP assessments, we see an academic loss of a half a year in math and an academic loss of a fourth of a year in reading for grades 3 through 8. They project that these learning losses will take over 20 years for our nation to just catch up to where we were pre-pandemic. That is the first ever national loss in math and a loss not seen since 1990 in reading. In Module 3, we examine developmentally flexible practices that teachers can use when designing curriculum to help our post-COVID students. COVID also magnified existing social and economic disparities, leaving a lasting impact on a broad range of communities across the globe. For many people, especially lower-income families, job loss became an immediate and devastating reality. For example, of the 74.7 million people who lost work at the start of the pandemic, many occurred in industries that pay below average wages. Many of those who lost work ran out of money and savings in early 2021, causing some 24 million adults to experience food insecurity and no means to make their housing payments, while higher income people experienced little economic decline. The data here highlights the disproportionate struggles faced by those living in poverty during the pandemic compared to their higher income counterparts. Approximately 25% of the low-income households reported not having enough food, and nearly 50% were behind on housing payments. Over 60% of adults in these households worked without pay, compared to 34.6% of those earning more than $150,000 annually, underscoring the deep economic divide that is pushing low-income families further into poverty and instability. In Module 4, we explore diversity-competent practices that can help teachers navigate in the classroom to help our post-COVID students. Given the unprecedented challenges related to COVID and the social and political unrest plaguing our country right now, it is not surprising that many teachers have left the profession in the past 4 years. For example, teacher turnover rates jumped from 6 to 10% in 2021 over the previous school year, which roughly corresponds to an extra 114,000 teachers leaving their position compared with the previous school year. Even more disturbing is a recent survey by the National Education Association that found 50% of teachers plan to retire in the next 5 years. As you can see here, it's not surprising teacher attrition is impacting our high poverty and rural communities much harder than our suburban communities. By the end of this course, you will have strategies to help you build a trauma-responsive, developmentally flexible, and inclusive curriculum to meet your students' social, emotional, and educational needs. You'll have a set of social, emotional exercises you can use in mindfulness, emotion regulation, stress resiliency, and self-awareness. You'll have tools to help you build your students' developmental skills, including listening and speaking, motivation, time management, and meeting goals. You'll have hands-on approaches to decrease problem behavior and increase positive behavior, approaches to resolve conflicts, and you'll have approaches to build students' cooperation in your classroom. Please check below this video for more resources, information on our upcoming modules, and a quick quiz to check your knowledge. And don't forget to subscribe to learn when the next module is available.